Welcome to St Ives School of Painting's How-To series. Short lessons taken from our longer online courses, designed to help you build confidence and skills in drawing and painting, one focused exercise at a time.
So I'll work on this clean bit of card and then I'll place them on here so you can see them together. I'm just going to pull the a little closer while I do this. I'll probably need some more white in a minute. White I'll get rid of lots of. So I'm going to first of all take a big blob of white, and then I'm going to take a little section of it there, put some ivory black. That's the ivory black. You might want to sort of, well, you can see this on your screen, so you've got them all marked out with the names of the colours on there. I'm talking as if you don't know any of this. A lot of you obviously know it all already, but yeah, you know, I'll go through everything so it makes it easier to look at. So I'm going to put a little bit of that ivory black into that mix there, and it makes a neutral grey. So say quite often when I'm doing this, it's a bit like cookery, isn't it? Sort of mixing up a nice recipe. In actual fact, I think what I'll do, I'm going to make all that a bit more ivory black as the neutral grey. Some of these greys can go into the foam and the, you know, so I'm thinking about that while I'm mixing them, colours that will be relevant to the painting. No, so there we go. And this part is quite therapeutic, mixing the colours. Anybody that's heard me do it before, I mentioned going into my studio in the morning and spending 20 minutes doing the mixing with a cup of coffee and some jazz playing. You know, that's creates the atmosphere I want for starting. But then if I've got all my colours worked out, I never consider myself as a natural colourist, so this is a real helpful thing for me to lay all the colours out. Right, I'm going to take that little bit there, and where I've got greys on the, I'm going to put that neutral grey as the first one. I'll halve this one, and then that one I'm going to put a little bit of ultramarine in it. You can see that cools it up. You can see the difference. It doesn't have to be a vast change in it, but there we go. So just mixing up that cool grey. Again, you can see that can go into skies, and I find greys are a very useful thing to have on your palette. You can sort of dip into them and feed into your other colours, your other purer colours. So there's that next to that one. I'll just get a bit of paper to just wipe my brush, my palette knife. I'm using a square palette knife. It's just because it's what I prefer. So if you notice, I mean, if you're ever down in this part of the world and you go to Penley House in Penzance, they've got all the old Newlyn painters of the turn of the century there, you know, people like Stanhope Forbes and Harold Harvey and all these guys. And you'll notice in the rigging of the boats and the paint marks, square brushes and square palette knives are quite prominent in all those images. So they're quite useful to use. And yeah, I forgot at the start to say, you know, it was great to see that lots of people from all over the world are involved in watching this today, which is wonderful. And I believe got somebody from British Columbia as well. So I just wanted to mention them. So here we go. I'm going to this one now here. I'm going to put a little bit of you can see how much, just a pinprick of yellow ochre, and that really changes the colour of the grey. But there we go. Make that nice warm grey. And of course, what you'll do when you're physically making your own colour chart list, you might want certain colours that you know you're going to use in your painting. You might want to make a little bit more of. So I'm just going to place that one there. So you see those three greys are quite nice together. But just to realise that you could go on making green greys, mauve greys, it's endless the amount of greys you could work on there. Just put a bit more of that colour there. That's got that one down. Another useful colour in landscape and seascape is using lemon yellow. Now, if I just use a touch of ivory black, which I say isn't too intense, and then I'm going to use lemon yellow and push that in there. So you can see it coming into a nice green on the screen. Actually, it looks a bit more intense on the screen than it actually is, but that's fine. Yeah, I think it's a bit bluer on the screen than this. But it's green is a tricky one in landscape painting. It can sometimes look a bit harsh at people using greens out of tubes, So to start with this, it can be quite helpful to have. I'm going to make a bit more because I might put it into the background of the painting. So I'll just take another little touch of ivory black. I'll make sure it's all mixed very well. And it's important to clean your palette knife in between things because obviously it's easy to contaminate the colours and, we know all about that now, don't we, with COVID, about keeping everything clean and pristine. So I've got that green. I'm just going to take one bit of it and place it there. So just to anybody that was wondering again, I'll just repeat that one is just lemon yellow and ivory black, particularly ivory black because it's not as intense as some of the other blacks. Now I'll take that little bit of green there and I'm going to put a bit of warm grey in with that one. You see how it tones down the grass quite instantly, that warm grey. It makes it quite pleasant, which will always look nice in a painting if it's toned back. I'm going to leave a spot of it. I'll put that one next to it there. Now with that one, I'm just going to push in a little bit of ochre. So as the greenery fades, you get these sort of ochre-y greens coming into the image. I'm going to place that one there. Now, with that one, I'm going to put in a little bit more lemon, and I'm going to put in a little bit more white to make a lighter green. See, even some of these greens go into the sea as well in places, so it's a useful one to mix, even though it's more, for grass and landscape. That should give me enough of those greens for now. They're placed. Note how they look nice when they're all down on the palette, and you start to realise that if they're looking good on the palette together, they're going to look nice on your painting close by, So it's again, if you've got this thing where you don't think you're a natural colourist like me, it's a useful thing. There's a good painter down here who's got a lovely natural colour, and Neil Pinkett he's very good with his colour. He's a friend as well, which is nice. So anyway, there we go. So what I'll do now, I'm going to take some white and just show you what happens if you just I've got some Viridian green here. Now, I wouldn't use that in my grasses because it's so intense, but look, I'm just going to pinprick. That's all I've got, that little pinprick on there. And you watch. Whoa. So strong, isn't it, Viridian green? But you can see that coming into the sea, though, can't you? That would be quite nice in the sea. I'm going to mix some of that other green on my palette into it. Yeah. I mean, this is a fun part, I always think, mixing the colours, and then you can look at those colours against what you're going to paint. It'll be quite helpful. So that's with just a touch of Viridian. And I'll actually make a spot more of that with more white. You can see you get through loads of white with all this mixing. So there we go. That's that. So what I'll do at the same time now is I'll put in some lemon yellow. There we go. Obviously these colours I'm mixing now are ones that are relevant to the sea. So that's with a bit more lemon yellow in. And now this one, I'm going to touch of ochre, which is when the colour of the sea picks up a little bit of sand. You see, it dulls it back a little bit. Some of these might be just subtle changes, but you know, they're useful things to know. So just a subtlety there with a bit more ochre in that one. And I think with that one, I'm actually going to feed in a little bit more of the green there.
Gary, may I just ask? I notice once you've mixed a colour, you're putting these very closely to other colours.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, I know you drew out that in part that's so that you can see whether they're looking good. But is there any other reason why you're putting them so close together?
No, I mean, I just like to sort of balance them in increments. So I'm only adding a little bit of colour at each one. Just makes it easier for me than going from dark to light. And, you know, I want them to look pretty good on there first. And that's basically it, really. I'm going to put a little bit more viridian in that one to make it stronger, but there we go. And of course, another thing that happens in those turquoise seas, I've got that one which had a bit of viridian, bit of yellow ochre in it as well, and lemon yellow. But what I'm going to do now is add a little bit of cerulean blue in there, again to make another sea colour. And I'll divide that into two again. What I do when I'm mixing, I'll leave one, I'll take half of it and place that there. Then I'll leave half to add a little bit more colour into it to change it a little bit, make it a darker blue-green. Quite often when you look out, I mean, I've got the advantage here of looking out the window. Quite often the sea isn't bright at all. It's because it's reflecting the light from the sky. So I'm just going to place that one there. And then the next one, I'm going to put some cool grey into that one. The grey is quite useful, as I say, to sort of knock it back a bit and make the colours not so intense. So, let's have a look. And it's probably a good way of displaying them, having so close together, just to see them like that. So, I mean, to get the real dark sea there, let me just take a little bit of that blue. I'm going to put a little bit of burnt umber in there. You wouldn't think of burnt umber with the sea, would you, normally? But just a little bit in there, which just knocks it back fractionally. See, all these colours can feed in. There we go, another one in there, and like a greeny grey. Another colour that will be useful to add into the waves is to make a mauve. And to do that, I'll just use ultramarine blue, and alizarin crimson, and white again. You see this nice mauve coming up. Well, there's a bit of green in there as well, but that's fine. I'm picking up a little bit of the green. But you can imagine that mauve coming into those foamy areas of wave as well. That's obviously a stronger bit of it. So I'll put that there. Then that one I've already got rid of all my white, so I need to just place a little bit more white. Oh, there I go again, putting some more black on my finger. So I'll just put some white out first, and then we'll crack ahead with that. Yeah. As you know, the white is the thing you're going to use most of for mixing. So take a spot more. And this one I'll divide into two again, and I'll place that one there, the lighter version of that mauve. And then with this one, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that green in there. See that sort of little bit of green coming through in there? That's rather nice again in those foamy areas. Doesn't look too green when you place it next to the other, but you can see a hint of it coming through. So you can be quite subtle with these changes as you go through to get the ones you want. I'll I want to be aware of colours I've got in my painting as well. So I'm just to sort of keep referring back to colours in the image of those waves splashing along there. Let me just think. Oh yes, I'll do the sand colour that you can pick up. So I've got that white there again, and a little bit of ochre. It makes, you know, you can buy Naples yellow in tubes, obviously, but you don't need to. You can make it with yellow ochre and white. So that makes quite a nice sandy colour, light sand colour. Again, I can keep referring out the window to what I can see out there. So I've got that. I'll place that sand colour there. Then I'll do more sand colour with that, white, lighter. And of course you can feed some of these sand colours into your turquoises as well. So that's lighter, moving across. And then I'm going to actually use some neutral grey into there as well. So what you start to get is, you know, where the water's rolled back off the sand, you start to get this sort of grey area. So I'm looking out now just to see again. Because the sand and the sea, it's all reflective of what's going on above it, the sky and such there. So I'll just look at some of the background things now. I mean, I can use some of these colours I've mixed up here to look at the sky as well. So I'm going to take that mauve and mix a bit of sky colour. I'm going to have the sky on mine, sort of quite mauve, but with a bit of a warmth coming through in it. So I'll just place that one there for the sky one. So I'm just going to, my next step is to look at the landscape behind, and I think in the film it's sort of quite subdued with browny greys and things like that. So yeah, I mean, and when I was mixing the colours there, I mentioned these, didn't I? Looking at charts like this one's Farrow and Ball, but you know, you can have a chart in front of you. When you go out sketching, if you have one of these with you, you can actually describe your colour by just giving it a number on your drawing and place that in front. So, which is a good tip to have with you at all time. Right, so I'm going to start to look at that background rock colour now. So I'm going to mix up some darks for the rocks. So I'm going to use a bit of ultramarine again. And I'm going to put a bit of burnt sienna in there, which just takes it back a bit. I've got a bit of white on my on my palette knife. So there we go. That makes quite a decent dark to start with. So I'll just place that one there. And then I want some of these darks to also go towards the brown. So I've got some burnt umber put into there. Burnt umber. You can see when you scrape it off how brown it becomes underneath. So that's a browny dark next to that bluey mauve dark. And then another useful one, if I take a bit of alizarin crimson, and then I'll use viridian with it. Now that makes rather a nice dark look. Crimson and viridian. So you don't always have to use the black from the tube. This is making some nice sort of variations on the darks. And then you can start to sort of mix a little bit of grey in with them to make that sort of nice greeny grey look into the rocks. I'll just take a bit of it and place it there. And then the next one, I'm going to put a little bit of ochre in that. There we go. So, when you look at your image of the waves splashing on the shore, just look at the rocks in front and see sort of the colours you can see appearing there. I haven't used any cobalt blue yet. I like to use cobalt blue sparingly because, you see a lot of galleries with just cobalt blue seascapes and they all start to look a bit the same. So I'm going to take that white there and I'm going to take some cobalt. Sort of quite Mediterranean, isn't it? The blue you get from that. The sea here is not often as bright as that with the. I'll put one little bit of it there, but then I'm going to sort of start to feed in. I'll just make a little bit more of that green. Yeah. And I'll feed that into that. Makes an interesting sort of sea colour. The trick is remembering what you've put in these mixes so you can make them again if you run out of the colour. Okay. Right, so I'll put that one close by there. And then that one's going to have a little bit more of the warm grey in. I'll need to mix up some more warm grey in a minute, but there we go. Let's see what happens when I put a bit of burnt sienna into that. I'm still thinking rocks here, so bit of burnt sienna to warm the rocks up there. I'm going to go back to the ivory black and push some neutral grey into that. Sort of getting most of the things we'll need for this painting down here now. So I'll just put those next to there. Right, probably worth now just looking at the colours we've mixed there. You can spend you could spend all day mixing colours. It's just, it's quite nice to get your head into gear before you start the painting so that you know where you're going with it. There are obviously loads and loads more colours you can put within that range that's going to help you with the sea. An important one, obviously, which I haven't done here yet, is to just look at the mix of the very light colour that goes into those splashes, which is what we're portraying at the moment. So that will be more white. Let me just put a big blob of the white there, and just adding a hint of the colour in. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that there. As I mentioned before, you won't get very much pure white in a painting. If you get too much, it doesn't look natural. There'll just be the odd spot with a couple of little spots of pure white. So let me just place that white there. It looks white, but there is a hint of that turquoisey green in there. And this one, I'm just going to put a hint of the mauve into that one. Again, subtle changes. And if you need to, when you place it on your canvas, you can add to it. So there's some more, and I'll just take a little bit more as well in there. Subtleties of white, really, just things that will feed into that. I think I don't know whether anybody has asked any more questions, Nick, about the mixing. If not, I can just carry on paint, but just wondered if...
They haven't at the moment, Gary.
No, okay, that's fine.
One thing I was wondering is whether this palette, whether you would adjust it depending on the type of year. We're thinking about doing winter storms,
yes.
but actually, or is it versatile enough that you can...
Well, I think the whole palette is versatile enough, but yeah, obviously you consider the time of the year and what's affecting the colours. I might add a bit more black or darker greys into some of those winter colours. So I'll put one of those in now. I'll just mix a darker grey, and I'll put a little bit of ultramarine in with that. So
as you seem to suggest, Gary, with your colour board, when you take it out with you, you're bringing the very much what you're seeing to your palette. Exactly. Is that right? Rather than just you create the same palette and then work and then begin from there.
Every painting will be different, and so it's a slightly different palette for whatever you're seeing out there in front of you. So I've just mixed that very dark sea there, which would be if you look at some of the stormy sea paintings, it's going almost as dark as that in places. So I'll just put a little bit there, really dark. Now let's see what happens when I put a bit more cobalt into that. The cobalt's quite strong, but let me place it there like that. And then again, just feeding in a bit more white into that cobalt. So they're just limitations within each colour. They just add a different blues. Obviously, give a different flavour to it. So the cerulean is a good one to make your turquoises with. So there's a blue grey that goes in there. So I think that's probably enough of the mixing the colours now.
Want more tips, tricks and inspiration? Each of the short lessons are taken from one of our full courses in our extensive online library. We have over 100 courses available for you to watch on demand. Visit our website to find out more and hit subscribe for more creative inspiration.